have me in trouble. Spending my days out in the ghetto. Mama say that I need to be careful.
Hey!
Going downtown, moving control. All over here, can't afford a rental.
Wait a minute.
Down Chevrolet, sitting on Central.
That's good for that Friday. Yeah, that's Friday.
You got
It's Feel Good Friday.
Jennifer Bacon.
What? JB in the free thing zone.
I just needed a good bop moment. Thank
Right,
you.
that was a moment. We needed that. I mean, if you are tuned in, you've tuned in at the right time. But go ahead and share this out right now. Create a watch party. Share it out and let somebody know to tap in right now to the free Think Zone, the conversation you've been waiting for. It's your girl Shay J on the Brother Jeff Network, the Free Think Zone. Thank you guys for joining us. But you know, I have to hit you with a trigger alert because it's a special edition. This is a show that triggers people because you have entered a Free Think Zone. If you're not willing to be exposed to other points of view, tune out now and don't read the comments. You have been warned. That's all I can do. I've warned you. This is a special edition. You know, normally we don't even have a 5 o'clock hour. At this point, I don't know what hours we have. We have a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1. I don't really know what goes on anymore because the news has been that vast. And you know, we're powered by the people. So that means if you go to brotherjeff.com right now and make any amount of donation, we get to keep the content rolling at any time, especially when we know it's relevant to our community. So go to brotherjeff.com right now and make any amount of donation. Keep us powered by the people so we can keep bringing you the things you want to hear. I'm so excited about my next guest on. I had to come in just for this today. I was going to take a break. I was like, hey, Free Think Zone, I think John Bowman has it. And if you tune in at 2 p.m., you know he had it going. Otherwise, you can check John Bowman out as well from his last production at 2 p.m. But this had to happen. Today, a historic event happened, and I have an historic person. I think she's going to make history now with some of the moves she's making. But I have to talk to you. Protests are galvanizing to take cops out of school. And we had to talk about it right here at the Free Think Zone. Up next, I have someone that helped lead us to victory in this fight against cops out of school. You guys might know her. She's a school board director. She is a member, and she's also a member right here in the community, the one and only Jennifer Bacon. Jennifer.
That's what's up.
Hey, thank you.
Hey,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, we're so excited to have you in the Free Think Zone. And I think what's more beautiful about this moment is that the Free Think Zone, we're allowed, one of the big things is we're allowed to bring things to our community from a community perspective and then from a media perspective. But the beautiful thing is that we're allowed to mend some things in our community. I think more now than ever, we realize how much it takes each and every one of us. And one of the things I really talk about a lot when I was on at the Capitol speaking, everybody has a position, you know? Everybody has a role they're supposed to play. Everybody can't be on the front line. Everybody can't fight policy. Everybody can't go and grab the strap. Everybody can't fight in the street. Like, there's positions for everybody. And I appreciate you, Jennifer Bacon, for playing your position and playing it well. And I think at this moment it's came across full circle what you've really done for this community. And if they don't understand the magnitude of it, we're going to get into it today. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about you. I don't think a lot of people in our community, they know, you know, so it's like sister to sister moment. I got Jennifer Bacon. I just want to give y'all a little bit, you know, a background about this woman that you may not know enough about. Jennifer Bacon, what I love about you is that you're not afraid to talk about your history, where you come from, being a child of parents that were around during the Jim Crow law in the 1960s in Chicago. You've seen a lot of things. You had a grandmother who was refused education because of her skin color. So for you, this is not just, hey, I jumped in because I haven't seen anything, I'm a privileged sister, but you have really came from some deep-rooted systematic oppression. I think a lot of people will be amazed, but your first language is actually Spanish. So not only do you serve as a woman to us, but you can link us to our bilingual things and have the conversations that are needed in Spanish. And as a graduate of education and law, you're allowed to marry some things that we may not understand and get. And oftentimes I feel like policies they're rooted in so many different levels, and so many times we're looking for like just a yes or a no, but there's levels to this. And with you having a degree in education and law, I feel like you were allowed to dig into this deeper than ever before, and I thank you for that contribution as an educator, as an organizer. In 2017, you were elected school board member right here in Denver, Colorado. You've been serving us on a local school board level, and you've also been making sure firsthand about policies that deeply impact us, especially those of us that can't be at the table. So I want to thank you for your contribution right here in Denver, Colorado. Thank you, Jennifer Bacon.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
I really appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about what was Jennifer's goals growing up. What did you want to do, seeing all this, depression state of your grandmother not being able to get an education because of the color of her skin? What did Jennifer dream for herself?
I dreamed well, first I was up to a lot of shenanigans because, being 12.
Me too.
I think it was just like, I want this kind of car and, XYZ, and I'm probably living my dreams back out because I got the same braids I had when I was 12. But, it really took me getting into some trouble. So, I've been handcuffed and arrested before, and it took me getting into some trouble and talking to my grandfather.
A little bit louder, Jennifer. I'm sorry, they're having a little bit trouble hearing you out there.
Can you hear me okay?
Use your outdoor voice.
Okay, I will yell.
I will yell. I love it. Mine's always on. I don't know.
It's like, all right, you want me to start again?
Yes, please do.
Cool. Well, the question was, what was the vision I had for myself? And I think that I really didn't land on it until I got into trouble,
Mm-hmm.
And what pulled me out of that trouble, I was like arrested, I was failing school, all of that kind of stuff was happening in college.
Yeah.
But what pulled me out of that was actually like my grandfather's story. The last conversation I really had with him, he took us up to the Mississippi Delta where he was born and raised. And
Okay.
I just asked him, I said, how did you even end up in Chicago? And that's where he raised my father. And he said, my dad got into an argument with a white man. He hit him, and the next day we were on a train going north.
Oh my God.
And so I just knew then, like, the shenanigans were a waste of, like, literal generations of working so that I could have a great life. And so I decided then that I wanted to be an instrument or a tool for my community.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to feel those things or live through that. And so we did sit at tables at my mother's house in Mississippi talking about how people who were the first and desegregated things went crazy. And the thought is, there's a whole generation, just one generation before me,
Right.
that didn't have a chance to go to desegregated school. And so I didn't run just to have an office. I'll be damned if I don't change some of these systems, because there's no point in it being 2020 and you still have a 1 in 5 chance of being on grade level. You're 2 times more likely to be arrested.
Yep.
Not when there are people who are still living who fought to not have to have that experience. So I just did not want to miss that opportunity to change our system.
That's
Not
huge.
mess it up, but to change it.
I mean, man, you're hitting so many things. Can we talk a little bit about the climate of what's going on right now? How do you feel I know we've seen protest after protest, and as Black people, there's nothing new that's happening for us except for people joining in on this protest. What do you feel right now with the climate of America? Do you feel like there's hope and change? Do you feel like Bill 217 is going to be passed? Like, what do you feel right now in the midst of all these things?
Right. I feel like right now is our test,
Yeah.
I've been kind of very clear lately in saying that I deeply value the liberalism here in Denver in the sense that I don't need to have conversations that racism is a thing.
Yeah.
However, our liberalism needs to be checked right now. We can't just say things, we have to also do it. And I think that's what is different about this time, because you've been out there, it feels different.
It does.
There's something different.
Yeah.
I think just directly, people are in shock that we came out into the streets for Eric Garner and the same literal thing happened. And it's not just us, you know, like
Yeah.
the white folks are out there, a whole community are out there, and they're just shocked.
Yeah.
And so the awareness is that much more heightened of the things that we've been saying for years, right?
Ooh.
And this is
Yeah.
the time to act, because we can all, you know, share the memes of equality and equity and XYZ, but this is the time to prove that we are who we say we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know as a matter of politics that we have, because this is not the first time that we've raised the conversation about police in schools.
Exactly.
But I do think it was right now that it had to happen.
Oh my God, you're hitting on something huge, because this was a monumental moment. And I think for people that are sitting at home and say, we can't change policies, whatever's been has been, it's going to be the same, it is what it is. What can you speak to that? What do we need to do as a community to show up to make sure policies are changed and that change does happen?
Yeah, and I will say, like, this was the right time. It took, I know Tay and I ran against each other, and I just love that. But it did take both of us being there. So Absolutely. It matters who's running. It matters who you vote for. We have a great ally in Dr. Carrie Olson. Angela Kobyan's been working in her community. I mean, the deportation pipeline is real for the brown community.
Yeah.
And so it took this mix. And it took people showing up, I think, for more than 2 days. I know we went through a lot as a community. Here I am, an elected official. You know, I don't condone breaking of windows or whatnot, but I don't think rage should be boxed, you know? And when you see children, our kids were out there of all colors. I will say this next generation is not playing with these things. Now they're gonna learn how to change policy and what all the levers are, but they're real clear. Like, this is the generation that knows debt. This is the generation that's seen a black president. This is the generation they've heard "I can't breathe" twice. They are not playing, right?
No, that's real.
That is really important.
Yeah.
Because people are now setting a road for and visualizing their leadership. It's not the whole, you know, the stuffy white man tie leadership anymore.
Right.
Like, something's happening right now, and I think people need to watch who's running. You don't need to be like on them, like nah. Just know clearly what it is you want to see, because then you'll ask the right questions.
That's it.
People need to vote. People need to run the challenge. Democracy is not democracy unless there are challengers, right? And that is okay. But it's also right to show up and yell and like flex that power. And right now we have a system where you flex with what you buy, what you don't buy, what you vote for, and where you show up. You know? That's
real. For those of you just tuning in that may not know what's going on, let's just put this in picture for you. DPS was, it was said that they were paying DPD, the Department of, the Denver Public Police Department, $721,000 a year for school resource officers. So these were the resource officers that were in about, I think there was about 17 positions for these people taking place. $721,000 a year, a little bit over that for school resources offices. When they went into this contract, DPD is finally dissolved. According to the resolution they came across, they know that these funds can be allocated in different ways. It took the Board of Education, which Jennifer sits on, to make this happen. It was unanimously voted that DPD would be out of the schools. Jennifer, what does it look like when we talk about $721,000? That's a lot of money for resources officers that don't provide any type of mental stabilization for our children. They don't, provide the psychological support or the restorative justice that we say we're giving our kids. What does that look like now, allocating those funds somewhere else?
Yeah, well, I'll say a few things, like on the plus side. One of the things that our SROs have really demonstrated to us is that it is okay for police officers to get to know kids, because a lot of our work, and I'll get back to the cops.
Yes.
We needed to separate ourselves from policing in schools, but we still need to have a conversation with DPD, like a very real one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll say that. On the other side, while we want to use those dollars to get mental health providers, school counselors, social workers, and nurses, it's not enough. And I'll say that. But what we also did with the resolution was put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we believe to be necessary in support of the safety, physically and from the mental health standpoint. And so we hope to reorganize how we are operating, including our budget, to actually provide what we named that we need. So it's a first step to reallocate those dollars. It's the second to bring our communities together to really say what our kids are dealing with, and then orient not only our budget, but our strategies towards that. That's also what we were doing with this resolution and why it is that much more of a big deal.
That's huge. I think that I don't know if people understand the magnitude of students that are in need of the mental stability and the mental health. When did you guys, because I feel like Tay and yourself were a real big push on why this even happened, but when did you realize that this, having the cops in the schools may not be the solution in order to get our children to a better place? When was that like a aha moment for you?
Probably 10 years ago. You know, this is not, so people, and I'll say this because I get it, we moved at a very fast pace, but I need people to understand we were highly organized because this is not a new conversation. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So when I moved here, that might have been when I first met Brother Jeff. So I'm talking like 11 years ago. I came here from, being a lawyer, but I was a teacher in Miami and New Orleans. And in Miami, my school had a literal button on the wall that you pressed to call security, which was Miami PD. And we're talking about a middle school, right?
Whoa.
And so I just could not handle, I just don't understand why my people, like, why are we always the ones to just need to get used to police? And that's what I'm saying. Like, we have been conditioned to not be an angry Black woman. We have been conditioned to behave in front of police officers.
Yes.
We have been conditioned to expect them to always be around. Our numbers are up with tickets and whatnot because they were always around looking for it. If you put police officers in some college dorm, you would have the same numbers. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so, we know that we are being relegated to almost like a second-class citizen by way of people labeling us as expecting us to be criminals. As soon as elementary school. And so I started working with Padres Unidos because at the time, they were the ones in Denver of a national cohort piloting this term that we all now know, the school-to-prison pipeline.
Right.
And so we said that it is our systems that are preventing kids from going to college and being prepared for career because we are ticketing and arresting kids while also saying, SROs or police officers are there for safety. So while our SROs are waiting, because they're not a preventative measure in my book. They are a reactive measure. They are there to react if there is a shooter.
Yes.
So while, and I don't want to say, we are not waiting for this kind of violence, to God bless.
Right.
But when that is not happening, they are walking around or being called, because also DPD is called to schools, waiting for the ticketing. So it was used in community to say this is how we'll keep schools safe. But in the meantime, police officers showed up around the country, primarily in Black and brown schools, and all we then saw were broken windows policies and tickets going up. What people don't understand about getting tickets and being arrested is that you have a juvenile record. You got to put that on a college application.
Exactly.
You got to put that on a military application. And the legal system is not easy to navigate. If you are already hungry and don't know how to pay rent, who has $200 for a ticket? And if you don't pay it, now you got a bench warrant. Like, these are the things that really happen that a lot of people don't know beneath the surface. And it is systematically keeping people of color tied to the criminal justice system or away from college and opportunity.
Jennifer.
That's what has done with the system.
I love that you're unpacking this in such a way of the conversations that we're afraid to have, especially the conversations that make the difference. These are the kitchen table conversations we're having amongst our family when we really understand what's happening. But these are the conversations we're afraid to have with the real policymakers and the movers and the shakers. When you have someone like Brandon Pryor who has a son that was arrested in middle school, what are the proper steps in that? What is supposed to happen in a case like that?
Yeah, I mean, what happened, I can't even,
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so many things that we as a community have been kept from in having knowledge and how to navigate, but also kept from in knowledge to unpack our anger. And then sometimes we fight against each other or we just yell because we don't know what's and that is intentional. I want people to understand that. We need more black teachers, but we also need more black lawyers. We are not explaining to people how our system works.
Yes.
So in Colorado, kids as young as 10 can be arrested or ticketed. And I don't think people really get, because when you think children, like most people might go to middle school, but like that's happening in elementary school. And so there has to be a reason to restrain or detain someone. Restraint is usually for imminent danger, and detaining actually comes with rights. Like, you've heard of Miranda rights?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So like what happens is, because we have introduced like a police type like presence in our schools have been using them as a crutch for discipline. Because what are they doing in those in-between times when they're not actually handling crime?
Right.
They're in hallways. And their presence is intimidating, and we have leaned on them to get kids to behave. But doing that to particular people is conditioning a whole generation of black kids to think that their life might be in danger because there's a gun on someone's hip if they don't behave. That's what's happening in the weight of trauma from that. Even if our SROs, because some of our SROs are from our neighborhood, they're cool, but they're still walking around with a badge and gun. That is extra weight for children to have to process, especially in a time when we see police officers going way left. The difference between a good and a bad cop is death, and they're not being held accountable. And so we are having conversations with our kids on how to behave around law enforcement, and they're in our building.
Wow.
Because the one time you were misunderstood, what happened? And if you think children aren't thinking about that, then you don't know what the black experience is.
You don't know, exactly. I think people don't realize.
I had them in my school before Columbine. They were in my building. And I still think about that. Still. 25 years later.
We are traumatized. No, you're on a no, thank you, Jennifer, because we need to hear this. Our youth are traumatized. They're traumatized from what's happening, and I think a lot of times it's brushed over. It's walked past. They don't understand. The thing is, we're watching, like we've seen today, Cops and live PD was taken off the air because this is becoming too normalized. Cops go and they chase black and brown people and they do these things that are unorthodox, and then it's being brought into your home as entertainment, so it's like a sport. We are traumatized on levels that people don't understand, and it's starting younger and younger, generation after generation, and it's an extreme problem. To have somebody that's fighting for this in the school policies, we need this. We have a question right now from the Free Think Zone. Jennifer, can you please respond to the public comment of Indigenous Principal Stacey Parrish of the Northeast Early College last night? I don't know, Jennifer, are you familiar with this at all?
Yes.
Okay. So I see that parts of what she says. So I see that she says parts of the key part is that she said regarding the resolution to cut the contract with DPD, you think that it's bold to have a resolution to commit to 12 more months of listening and examining and drafting more next steps to address systematic racism without actually doing anything. Stop blaming some essential entity for the systematic racism and DPS and take ownership for the fact that you are the system we are trying to dismantle. That was something similar to the comment that was made by our Indigenous leader, Stacey, at Northeast Early College. Do you want to respond to that? And I know you can't speak for her, but however you interpret that.
Sure. I interpret that a few ways. So first, Principal Parrish is incredibly insightful and strong, wonderful leader, all of those things. And I feel like there's a lot of commentary about our system.
Yeah.
And she may be saying me, I'm not sure. She may be saying DPS. But what I'll say is this. There is a lot we need to do at DPS to tackle our white supremacy culture.
Mm-hmm.
I have been learning, elected leadership, it's one thing. I thought when I got here people would listen to me.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Right. I know what I'm doing, just listen to me.
So,
nope.
Like talking about a culture, you have to know, like DPS has been around for 160 years. It comes with that much history and culture.
Yeah.
And telling people about themselves is not always best received. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, the far northeast, for example, I think needs to be the leaders need to be treated better. We've had policies that have created unequal schooling opportunities out there. We have asked school leaders to do things way beyond their job description. They have to fight their own system to get help. They have to qualify what they're saying because they are not believed. There are a lot of things that we need to do. And I'll say that.
Yeah. It's necessary.
But we need to, the fact is, they're not being listened to, and so a lot of us are. So we have to reconfigure our power, because we are hoping people will get it. We're going to have to make people get it. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that I have had to learn, that it's not enough to say to do something.
Yeah.
You have to know where the self-interest is and what the levers are to push. But what I think some of the things that I've heard from principals are like, why is this the thing that you're fighting for? There are so many other things to fight for. And there are. And I'm not naive in saying that this was the time for this because we have different attention on it right now.
Right.
Because we have seen this issue before.
Absolutely.
But now everybody's willing to have this conversation. And so it was an opportunity to see. But it is not the only thing that we need to be doing.
Yeah.
And while we are making this important right now, this is not a more important. This is this thing right now.
I love the way you put that.
There's a lot of work that we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think she also said, blow it up or set it on fire. Right?
I'm sure.
Some of us are change it from the inside or take a sledgehammer from the outside. Either way, we still got to know where to set the charges. You know what I'm saying? And there are some things that we really, really have to dismantle.
Jennifer, Jennifer, can you speak to Margaret Bob's work in terms of her analysis of the budget and the allocation of resources that were supposed to go back to teachers and have seemed to make their way to administration in the name of different names of the position? And I had been critical of that and not questioning anyone's intelligence, but I'm saying that the DPS budget is very, very complicated, and the way that they have presented it, even Dr. Carrie Olson, as a PhD in that type of data, says she's confused as what has been presented to the board and in terms of a budget. Can you give us an update as it relates to Margaret Bob's work?
Yeah. So what Margaret Bob shared with us is what she did was clarify what we did when we said we made cuts. Does that make sense so far?
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So what we found is we did make cuts, but what we mostly did was move people into vacant positions that were already budgeted for. So we cut their old jobs and moved them into jobs that were already budgeted for, and that showed up as savings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the other thing that she says we did was give people raises. And something that she didn't quite say, but that I saw and that we agreed to work on, was that when we also looked at our pay, at how much people get paid, I think there are some real differences between people of color.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
Of course.
And so that's my interest. That's something that we're digging into now.
Yeah.
But the question.
Go ahead.
No, the question also being, if those positions were just being filled because they were empty and the money sat there, why wouldn't that money have made its way to the classroom? And then ultimately, do you agree with Margaret Bob's assessment or not?
Yeah.
Good question.
So I agree. What I agree with her is that if we have particular values, we need to make changes because they don't match right now.
Okay.
I also think that I'm not sure why things didn't go to classrooms.
Yeah.
But I do know we have that chance to change that now, right?
Okay.
Just to be fair, there's a lot of positions. Some of them were like teachers that were vacant for a while. So there was a little bit of that. Like she had a part of her map. Some people went into school. So there were just a few different categories. But what is really important is we need to walk our talk on our values, and we need to deeply understand if someone got a pay raise, what should at least have happened is they should have had to do more work. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
we're not all entirely sure about that. If I'm going to be just completely honest.
I like the honesty.
It's opened up for us. And just to answer your question, Brother Jeff, I do think we need to be putting more money, and not just more money, but we need to be pushing our talent into buildings, right? Versus downtown. And we're especially going to have to do that right now, quite honestly, because of COVID. And so we're going to have to really make some shifts. Now our hand's been forced.
There you go. And I love that you keep saying your values. What are the DPS school board values? What are you guys moving by? What's your level of integrity? What do you guys agree upon when making these decisions?
Yeah. The one thing I will say, we owe this conversation to the broader Denver community and bringing you all that clarity. A lot of us came on the board saying what we were doing for the last 10 years is not working.
Yeah.
But now it's our job to say, what will we do for the next 10 years? And so for the first couple of years, we have been trying to address the things that we agreed did not work. So for example, we need to do something about the way we rate schools, right? What we believe in is that there's more than test score data that tells the strengths and stories about schools.
Yes.
This board believes in equity. We have to do the work to define that. And so we are going to make our upcoming strategic plan actually be a district-wide equity plan, which is actually very unique for this country. You've also seen from some of the work that we've done lately, even with this last vote, is that we recognize that there's actually systemic and institutional racism.
Yeah.
And we are willing to undo that. We have to do our work to identify when it's happening. So we're asking for more data on how school is impacting all of our students across demographics. So we know what to target. And so what you'll see from us coming into the fall, we've just made some priorities for COVID, but it's going to really help us focus. We believe in the socio-emotional approach to education. We believe that equity is the cornerstone of providing a quality education. And we believe that people on the ground who are experiencing education are also qualified to define what it is for their own kids. So those are things that you can count on from this board. As we go through the fall, honestly, in my experience, we had superintendent search, strike, COVID. Every 6 months, it's been a major, major deal.
Yes.
And we have been kind of running in a triage circle. But now it's the time for you all to get from us our vision, focus, and direction. And you can count on those three things.
Ooh, I like that. Brother Jeff, you have a question for Ms. Bacon?
Yeah, I want to touch on Danielle Ashamu, and I want to talk about the confusion around that ticket to New Orleans. And you just outlined a lot of confusion as it relates to the budget and the administration.
Yeah.
But when it came to this black woman, there was no protection for her. She's out the door. There's no
immediately.
There's no you know what, let's watch, let's do some probationary stuff. And I'm not even saying she did anything wrong because I don't know the details, but how easy is it to dismiss a black woman from a principal position or a leadership position in a system that has been documented as being racist, and the same thing plays out? Where is the protection for black people inside of DPS, particularly the school leadership, and in this case, a black woman by the name of Danielle?
Or is there any?
Danielle? Mm-hmm. Or is there what?
Or is there any protection for her?
Or black people,
Well,
is there protection
you know,
for black people in a racist system,
Right.
that, you know, when they're outspoken and when they speak up, there's a long history of retaliation, and that's what
Always.
happens on plantations. So speak to Danielle's situation, and why isn't that black woman in a school building in a system that says that they value black bodies and are looking to recruit more?
Excellent
Yeah.
question.
Well, I'll say this, you know, it matters who's in these roles in a lot of ways, right? I would say that because I was there, I was able to do as much as I could to protect her. And I know there was some confusion, and that was only because it was lose-lose, and we both had to show up in very technical ways to support her, between myself and Ted. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
So what I was able to do was protect her career, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like she can't protect herself. I'm just talking on technical terms, right? So she was not fired or dismissed at the end of it, right?
Okay.
Eligible for rehire.
Okay.
And able to keep her salary through the end of her contract, right?
Okay.
And so, but on the premise for what the issue was, there was not agreement that was a quote unquote fireable offense, right? Because a lot of us felt some kind of way about cultural responsiveness to the issue. And so what we were trying to do was the technical piece to maintain her contract, as well as make a statement about the issue at the same time. Does that make sense so far?
That does. Yes.
But to your answer, I think it's culture and it's people. What we learned through this is that if you are not clearly saying what you want to see for people like me and checking for that kind of behavior, it's not going to happen. And that's, again, what I'm talking about, being made to act in a certain way. Now, the thing that broke my heart the most about DDS was that we said community-driven, district-supported at that school. And it is clear to me that our senior leadership doesn't understand what that is, or maybe doesn't value that. And that's going to be the work of these managers, whether it's a school leader, a deputy superintendent, a superintendent, a board member, to get on the same page of and flex when things don't happen.
Is there a way that we can protect, like, for example, did we have enough power as black people and parents who have a large percentage of our children in that school? Is there a way to say, hands off, Danielle, hands off black people? I don't care what the system is about to do. If you touch this one, your career is on the line.
Right.
This is heavily documented in terms of what racism looks like. And I'm just wondering who has that level of power to push up against our entire community and the school community, which is supposed to be driven by community. Who in that system has that level of power to say, I'm going to come after this, but I'm not going to go after those who are moving these budget numbers around in a way that nobody can understand where the assets are inside of that system?
Yeah, I think there's 3 different layers of that too. I mean, the issue around principal hiring, I can't control. I can control the evaluation, right, and our one employee. And that's what happened there, you know? I don't have that right legally and not by a matter of policy to hire or fire principals. But what we can do is be very clear on what it is that we want to see and won't tolerate from the superintendent, and see if we can get to majority or consensus on that kind of behavior. Because that's what our role is there. On the budget, that is our job. That's the board's job.
You know,
and I'm saying,
No,
I'm sorry?
go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, and I'm saying that there are two things. One, we have to do our diligence for sure, and that's not always our issue. The other is being clear on the information we need in the event it is not given to you.
You know, I do want to touch on one thing, and I'll give it right back to Shay, because this was a comment by Albertus Simmons, a community leader and a respected community leader, but he chimes in with, wow, we in the free think zone, and it's not we in the free think zone, because every host has their own particular voice. We don't have group think. We don't agree on individual candidates. As a matter of fact, half the time we don't agree on anything. But we do agree that we all have respected voices and we respect opinions. So that basically speaks to Albertus's wow, because you know that I've been critical of your decision as it related to hiring and the super search, but it was not critical of you as a person, because we have always had conversations behind the scene and been cordial. We don't have that kind of animosity. So to address Albertus directly with his wow, I was critical of the super search because I didn't think it went well. I didn't think it was run well. I think that it was a setup and all of that. And I spoke to the entire board's participation in that, including Jennifer's leadership role. As it relates to putting police out of school, which I believe Albertus would love to have those police in the school, I am 100% with Jennifer Bacon, and I'm singing her praises. I'm 100% with her. I'm in the car with her, Tay, and the other 5 board members, and everyone who is upset because we are putting education without police at the forefront of our children. I'm on the opposite side of that. I'm with Jennifer on this. And I believe that Jennifer has heard loud and clear me personally saying it to her, me personally posting it, and I'll say it again. Jennifer, I am 100% proud of the bold stand that you've made, the things that you are saying, and the way that you have navigated this. And those who are upset with me for saying this, that's just something they're just going to have to deal with, because Jennifer, I am in the car with you, and I do salute your hard work, and I wanted to say that to you personally.
Now that's a class act if you've ever seen one. I think that's the most important part of leadership, learning how to say, I don't have to agree with everything that you say or do to move things forward, and to acknowledge when you do things that are for the better of our community. So many times I think us as a black community, we write off one another based off of the 1 or 2 things we disagree on. Not all the, 90% of things we agree on, but it's like, oh, there's 10% that I don't agree with, so I'm just not going to rock with her. But in order to move forward as a community for the good of our community, I think it's important that we start finding places that we can agree and we can move the needle forward in situations like this, where we know cops being in our school when our kids need to be rehabilitated, when they need counselors, when they need the real psychology help, when they need these things, we realize it. And it just, what I can't understand, Jennifer, is so many people are, this is a moment of F the police. We don't need the police. But then when we talk about education, they start getting a little bit quieter. And they start getting nervous. And they start getting this, what if this comes in and what if that comes in? Well, most of all school shootings that occurred, there was a resource officer on duty and the school shooting still occurred. And so I don't think people really realize the depth of the traumatized students that we have, the black and brown students that are sitting in places where this doesn't feel comfortable. This is not how we move forward, and we're talking about educating our students properly. I have somebody who just said, what I'm looking at is I've had my student in DPS forever, and I don't understand the poor education that DPS gives to black students. I feel like there should be a voucher program in place that allows us to place school choice first, so my tax money no longer goes to DPS. I'm sickened by their choices of education. What do you say to that comment?
I have the technical answer to that as well as the real life answer to that. This is why we've been pushed to this place around choice.
Yeah.
But we've been pushed to that place because DPS is not doing what they need to do. If education is quality, we don't have to ask questions like that.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, it is communities of color that suffer. Every parent, regardless of what you look like, wants their kid to be safe, get to A to B in their learning, and healthy. And our community has showed we are willing to lie about our address. We've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
to be able to secure a future for children. The minute we start issuing vouchers, then we're putting premiums on education and going into privatization moments, where then gaps widen between haves and have-nots. And when you have decentralized systems, you cannot guarantee that they will educate your kid.
Yeah.
Because the market will start dictating that. And when you have privatized education, that means there are too many gaps for kids who can't go or families who can't do X, Y, Z. And while it might be the best for you if you can do it, as a community and as a whole, with the system not being intact, then we cannot ensure that every child should at least be able to read. So it's hard. And our sentiments have been manipulated for that. That is why we are finding ourselves in these quandaries around choice right now. Everybody can't go. Either there aren't enough seats, I can't get the bus at 4 a.m. to go down to TJ, East, or George from Montbello.
Right.
We're the ones that burden is on. We shouldn't have to get up and go.
You're right. No, that's real.
But we are failing as a district, and I understand that. And so I hope that we can all hear what this parent is sharing, because like nobody wants to trap you, and I don't. But when people start also leaving, there go our assets, and we will get into a death spiral, because we will never be able to build and get better. There are things that we need to do beyond police and school. Our curriculum, I think it's a shame that any black child thinks that their only ancestor was a slave.
Thank you.
That is an American problem.
Yeah,
Christopher Columbus did not discover this land.
that part.
And so when you do not see yourself reflected, you are not invested. But as a state and as a nation, we have said, we will be literate. There are not countries across the world that invest in that.
Right.
But it's not enough. That is a very low floor. And we need to do that much more to provide quality. That is our responsibility. And I'm asking our community to make that investment with us and to kick in the door when it's not happening. I don't get mad. People yell at me all the time. But I'm not
sure.
mad at rage if it's the system that's doing it. I cannot be a part of an oppressive system, then further oppress people by telling them how to behave with their rage. And so
That's a word.
we can show up. I hope people are seeing this right now, what we're seeing in the streets, because we have them. This is the time to make the demand. And if people are not stepping up, then they are not who they say they are.
Yeah.
I'm yelling in my house. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We're with you. We're with you here.
You know? I'm sorry.
No, we're with you.
Okay. I'm sorry.
They're like, are you okay in the house? Are you
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. I just, you know.
No, Jennifer, I think you're hitting on so many things, and I really stand with you as a black woman, understanding that there's so many rooms that we walk in where we're the one and the only. Not only are we women, so we're fighting one race, but we're women and we're black. So we're walking into rooms. A lot of the times, I'm the only journalist. I'm the only person in media that's a black woman. I'm the only person that is fighting with the Black Business Initiative. I'm the only one. And so many people think that, hey, carry this burden on your back and you should be able to go ahead and solve it. But it takes all of you guys fighting with us in order for us to move things. How can the community show up in this fight? Like we're talking about, curriculum needs to be changed in DPS. We know that. This step with defunding, the police inside of the district, that's one step, but there's multiple steps to get where we need to go. How can the community show up and make sure that they hold you accountable for the things that you say you're going to do for our community?
So I think there are a few things. One of the things that I want to do better is help explain to people who makes what decisions and where, so we know where to target our energy.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
There is, I believe the curriculum needs to be changed, but we need to raise that awareness to the other people in the space to understand why.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, our DMLK students came to us and demanded that we correct the curriculum, and it shouldn't have taken them coming down there. But people don't get it because that's what privilege is. Curriculum's working for them. And so we got to figure out, and that's something I'm thinking about, how do I give people the knowledge of how our system's working so they know how to target And how do we share the stories and spotlight the experiences of why this is important? Because privilege does not get it because they don't have to. So we can't expect that they will. That's what they fought for with their power, to be comfortable, right?
Yes.
And so whatever we can do to put the spotlight on and to pull those levers across the 7 of us, across the top leadership, then we need to do that. I think parents, you know, maybe I can't, I don't even know if I can say this. I'm going to
Go ahead, you got it. Free things on.
You know, like, I don't think we need to be pulling kids out of school for the detriment of learning gaps, but we need to recognize who has power, right?
Well, when we think about power,
So I got to be careful because I'm on the board.
yeah,
You know?
I get it.
But like, what happens if 30 parents say absolutely not? People don't believe they have power because they were conditioned to that,
Yeah.
right? Well, if 30 parents in one building showed up and said absolutely not, that changes things.
That is
It
true.
does.
That is true.
Well, when you think about power, one of the power dynamics I was thinking about was the fact that there was a lot of high hope for change in what they call flip the board. But prior to flipping the board, the power lied in hiring a new superintendent. And I'm totally in agreement with Leanne Wheeler, who comes from a military perspective and says, you know, when change comes, whoever's in charge at the time, they leave in plus 2 more who are right below them. How can we have change when Susanna Cordova really represents Bennett and the Boalsburg way of life? How can we expect that kind of change or that widespread change under the same leadership that produces an attack on people like Danielle Ashamu? I understand that the superintendent is about to have an evaluation. Are we to expect the same leadership or any changes? Where are we at with this? And there is a community call for her to be replaced.
Yes.
Have you been hearing that? And then, or is that just kind of chatter or background noise?
Let me share this. One day we're gonna talk about the superintendent search, and I'm gonna put it this way. There were a lot of interests around the superintendent search, and then the other thing I'm gonna say is there was compromise, because there were some people who were way worse and some people who might have been better, but amongst the 7 of us, particularly being in a minority position by way of vote, we were only able to push so far. Then I will say that not everyone in this community has an issue with Susanna, and there are some people who have some influence who want to support her too. And that was then and now. So that's what I'm going to say in this space.
Yeah,
you know?
I get it.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, the power brokers in our community that are black, they are largely on the opposite side of the masses of the people.
Right.
And I can tell you some of those people are like Happy Haynes, big education reform people who get that kind of money. The folks that ran around and took that Bloomberg money and said that stop and frisk was something good for our community. Let's make him president. I'm not talking about the moist Negro leaders that have been selling us out. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just saying that we're held accountable, like Danielle Ashamu, over a ticket where one person may have come in and blew the whistle in terms of thinking they saw something wrong. We're held accountable when Gilpin is a passing school and then they take 1 point away from that school and give it to white people. We're held accountable for everything, but when the board comes up with a process that they say they can do better, they're not held accountable. And the level of accountability speaks volumes. I appreciate what you just said, and I'm looking forward to a greater conversation around that. Where are we at with Susan Cordova and her evaluation? And is it true that she requested that it be pushed forward as opposed to having it done when she was supposed to be evaluated? Is that a rumor or a fact?
Oh, that's a
Fact check.
rumor.
Rumor.
We had, so we just had major event that we weren't able to organize around. And that much I'll say. So we have our evaluation coming up. Her contract is renewed in January, or in not this January. We are in June.
I know, right? I don't know where we're at.
Contract is renewed a little bit later. And I would say that the sentiments are interestingly the same from a couple of years ago. And that's what I want to give you by way of insight.
Okay.
I think what we need to do, not just for her, but for DPS, and I said this earlier to you, Shay, about, the vision and where we're going to go.
Yeah.
We did spend a lot of time thinking about what we don't like, but it's going to be the task of this board to come together and say, what do we like? Where are we going? And I'm saying that like critical of my own self, as somewhat of leadership. But the minute we got new people, we were thrown into COVID. Mm-hmm. And we have to learn how to focus. And it's not that we don't, we just all have to get on the same page and name where we're going to go. We have a really good sense of that. But I don't think we've been as definitive as people have been asking for. And that's just me trying to be, candid on where we're at. There are a lot of things that we've been trying to stop in a moment, right? Like the issue around Danielle. Don't get me started. I mean, maybe I should share with you the email with me yelling in all caps.
Right.
There are schools that have been fundamentally failed by white principals who squandered $150,000, and they got a lateral transfer, and we're going after a woman over a $900 ticket.
Come on, let's be real.
So some of us have been having these conversations, right? And some other people need to get what these conversations are. People are certainly showing up like allies, but they got to be in the room.
Yeah.
Okay?
Get in the room.
That's what we have to work on with each other. And we are setting ourselves up to be able to do that well. Because we have had way too many things now that I think the new folks are getting by way of understanding. How do you make what you are saying happen?
Yeah.
If that's,
Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Somebody's going to Google this later.
They're going to Google it. No, that makes perfect sense. What do we know with the COVID changing a lot of how we looked at education in schools? What do we have to look forward to this upcoming school year in 2021? What are the differences we should be looking at? Is it going to be school as normal, or what is that going to be like?
So it's so odd. I mean, the truth of the matter is we have suffered learning loss.
Yeah.
Even though we've been out for 3 months, a lot of people are doing the analysis of it. Even though we've been out for 3 months, at minimum, we've lost 6 months worth of learning. And not being in schools physically is contributing to that. Mm-hmm. But Denver is not the same as other cities in Colorado. We are experiencing COVID at different rates. Montbello, far northeast has some of the highest rates.
Of course.
And we will go to school. We have these rates because we got to go to work, right? Mm-hmm. And we just got to figure out what we can do to flatten this curve, because it's still real. We have our own. So Aurora, for example, and Cherry Creek, they're Tri-County Health. Our healthcare person or agency that gives us permission or the clearing to go is Denver Health. Right?
Yes.
And we have a different relationship with this disease right now. So we're making a plan to see if we can go back fully. But Denver Health is still recommending no rooms with more than 15 people in it.
Okay.
And we might go back to a hybrid approach, which means being in the building some days and not being in the building others, just to accommodate having less people in class.
Okay. So
we're still working on that. We will probably have more answers towards the middle of the summer.
I love it. It's all changing, and I think we have to change with the times. And I really appreciate you coming and talking to us at the Free Think Zone. What I love so much is that, once again, we're powered by the people. So if you guys haven't went to brotherjeff.com right now and gave any amount, it's your chance right now. Go to brotherjeff.com, give any amount right now of a donation to keep us powered by the people, so we can have these conversations that directly affect our community, and we can be in control of the narrative. We know a lot of the times conversations go way above us and we don't hear it, or we don't even understand what's taking place. Here, right here in the Free Think Zone, we aim to give you the real conversation in real time, and so you can make a real decision about how you'll support, what you'll do to be a part of the changes. At this point, the district has defunded the Denver Police Department being inside of DPS. It's going to be a gradual thing. It's not going to happen overnight. When should we be looking for this to take place, Jennifer?
So we put in the resolution to convene a community task force that prioritizes having the schools in which the SROs were removed from, as well as mental health providers, students, family stakeholders. And we put in the resolution to have that group be convened by no later than August 30th.
Okay, that's fast.
And they will work through December, and then we're going to start to figure out in phase in the second semester in 2021, so that we can have them all removed by the start of the 21 school year.
I love that. A lot of people that, if you don't know Jennifer Bacon, I hope that you take time and get to know. And like you know that all fights are not made equal. So it's going to take us standing beside and fighting and letting our voices be heard. One person can't make a great decision without impact from different people. One of my favorite quotes from you, Jennifer, is that I know policies typically fail because those impacted by them are not at the table when they are made. I am a leader that collaborates with stakeholders and listens to their needs and concerns to solve real issues. So your commitment to our people is there. And I think we have to just figure out how that we all join in this conversation, join in this commitment to make sure that we're getting our students the best education. And it doesn't just take you, but it takes all of us. Thank you for opening up, for having real conversation with us, and to being open to hearing what your community has to say and what we need from you. Any last words from you, Brother Jeff, and then I'll give it to Jennifer.
I'm going to just underscore, I salute your courage, your tenacity, your fight that you have to do behind the scenes. Because I know that when we are in those corners and we're facing those that don't understand us, we have to type in all caps, and then all of a sudden they say that we fit the stereotype of being angry. Well, we are angry. We're seeing it in the streets, and you are providing great leadership, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And your last words to the Free Think Zone, Miss Jennifer Bacon.
There's a lot more work that we have to do, and I hope that we can really find our way to each other.
Yeah.
Because we are stronger together, and there are a lot of people banking on us not being strong together.
That's real.
And that doesn't mean we have to agree on everything.
Key.
But there is something that we know to be true about our freedom. And we can all show up the way that we know we need to. And the other thing is, the hardest part is taking that first step. The hardest part is believing that your voice matters. But I guarantee you there are other people who feel like you, and just imagine your power if we show up together.
That's huge.
So, I'm sorry?
That's huge. You're absolutely right with that.
So I know that I've got a lot of learning and growing to do always. But my stake in the ground is for my people. And we may not always get the win, but it is the pursuit and the effort that matters. So I hope that people can see a little bit of something from this action yesterday, just a little bit, even if it's a glimmer of hope in times when it feels like it's hopeless.
Well, you're stepping.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for stepping in the right direction. Thank you for supporting our youth at a time like this when we need it most. Once again, our voices matter. Please stand with us in the fight to make sure we're doing the right thing in education and educating our youth, especially our black and brown students, because they need us. If you haven't went to brotherjeff.com, it's not too late. Make sure you grab your t-shirt, Black Lives Matters, I Can't Breathe, whatever it is, support. Because like she said, we're stronger together. And the best nation, donation. Go to brotherjeff.com right now. Any amount of donation keeps us going. We want to thank you for your time and thank you for fighting for our students. Once again, thank you, Miss Jennifer Bacon.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
Tell
guys.
about Chubby Curl.
And you know what this is? This is brought to you by Chubby Curls, educating the natural hair one scalp at a time. If you got those skinny curls, make them chubby. If you got that dry chin juice, put some juice in it and juice it up, because we don't like that. Whatever that's dry, just juice it up with Chubby Curls. ChubbyCurls.com. Make sure you're buying black, like I said before. It doesn't matter if Black Lives Matters if you're not buying black. So buy black, support black, build black, and let your voices be heard. We're in this fight together. And remember, community, if you go down swinging. You might just score a knockout. Rumble on, community, rumble on. I'm your girl, Shay J, the Free Think Zone. Thank you so much.
There we go. There we have it.